What I'm going to talk to you about today is really about how social is impacting on all of us, or how the internet is impacting on all of us. How the genie is out the bottle in terms of social. What you can do yourselves as what you can go back to the office and do yourselves, and how you can make sure that when people look at you socially, as in on the internet, they will come to a conclusion that you want them to come to, and how you can actually use, or some of the techniques that you should be using internally as well within organisations that I think you should be doing. We all in this room are now pretty much sophisticated buyers. If you're going to buy something, the first place you probably go to is Google, and you probably do a search. Whereas when I started in sales, you usually had to talk to a salesperson. So you're in this situation now as a salesperson where you can actually bypass me, and in fact, you probably avoid me. I bought a car recently, and when I first bought my first car, it took me weeks and weeks because I had to go out and visit all the car showrooms, and it was about whether I had wind-up windows or electric windows. Now I can just go online and I just configure it. And the only reason why I have to go and see the salesperson is because I kind of have to, and I think I'm going to get some sort of discount, but I don't really. Has anything really changed in the last few years? Actually, I would say it has. Certainly in the last 20-30 years. My parents had a job for life. They worked at their organisations for 30 years. I was talking to my partner's 22-year-old the other day, and he said, "Yeah, I really like my job at the moment, but I'm only going to stay there for 3 years because I've kind of learned the job once I've done that, and I'm going to go and get somewhere else." In the past, we had a controlled culture. So at the previous company I worked at, the only way that you could talk to the outside world was if you went on a 2-day training course, which was to teach you how to actually talk to the press. Now I can just go online and I can talk to the world. And also we have a situation where as organisations, I don't know if Glassdoor is over here, but Glassdoor is a bit like a TripAdvisor for jobs. So what you can do, what your disgruntled employees do, is that they all go on Glassdoor and say how rubbish your organisation is. And so there are people out there that are making recruitment decisions. I know people that have decided not to go and work at particular organisations because of what was written up on Glassdoor. So there's things out there on the internet, and if you work in HR or training and development, you need to know what people are writing about you, because you can't actually change it. On TripAdvisor, you can actually challenge it, but on Glassdoor, you can't. So one of the things that I talk about a lot is about how can we take our contacts, so the little black book are the business cards that we collect, and how can we put that online? And what can we do to actually use that as a way to help us? So in our little black book, we'll have contacts, we'll have targets, maybe people that we actually want to talk to at some point, we'll have champions, we'll have mentors, and there may be customers in there as well. And what we're now able to do is actually put them online and actually use that as a tool, not only just in our business lives, but in our private lives as well. So what is important about a network? First thing that's important is trust. The first people that you're going to buy from will be the people that you actually trust and you admire and who influence you. When I went to buy my car, the first thing that I did was I went into the office and I said, "You've got a Mini, what's it like? I hear that there's lots of really bad problems about it." "No," Dave said, "I've got 2 of them, I think they're fantastic." And so what we're doing is that as we're going through the buying process of anything in an organisation, is that we're talking to people, and everybody in this room has influence. You all are influencers. Whether it's about whether you're going to go to the next Star Wars movie or whether you like a particular restaurant in town, it's all things that you can actually provide as an influence. So we're now in a situation where probably in the past we had a number of relationships and it was probably in the dozens, because we swapped business cards, and what happened was that people probably changed every 2 or 3 years, and when we actually went to phone up Tim, he wasn't working in there anymore, so we just put it in the bin. In terms of being able to touch our customers or talk to our customers, we probably did that weekly or monthly. Trust was kind of, you go to somebody and say, what do you think about Tim Hughes? Yeah, good guy, but don't like his presentations, that sort of thing. But now, I'm actually able to put out a video of me on YouTube. Now, I might not actually be standing in front of an audience, and I might actually have edited it, but it actually looks like I'm actually really good at presenting. In terms of how do you get in front of mind of your customers, well, kind of the only thing you could do was ring them up probably every 3 months. And so what we're actually now able to do is actually have hundreds or thousands of contacts. So on LinkedIn, for example, I have something like 9,000 contacts, and I'm able to talk to them every day. And I'm able to talk to them hourly, and I'm also able to be in a situation where I'm able to get front of mind of those people pretty much every day. And what I'm seeing, or what I see, is the fact that we need to do this partly because everybody else is doing it, but partly because this is the way that society works. Society is now online. Now, I know you're not a particular sales audience, but this is some research from CEB, which kind of backs up the notion that us as individuals and as consumers are going online and doing research. And now we're in a situation from a sales perspective where people are going online and they're not contacting the salesperson until they're 50% of the way through the buying process. So that has an impact on me, because in the past you rang me up and I could give you 80% of the information. Now you're only getting 20% of the information. It's about 37% of the way through the process where you actually define what your problem is and what your solution is. And I, as a salesperson, am not able to actually intervene or persuade you that you need to do or go down a particular direction. I've actually seen research from SAP that says it's something like 85%. It doesn't really matter. The fact is that people are actually going online and doing this, and this has an impact. Now, this has an impact to all of our lives, because what happens is that we're being looked at. So what we need is a different set of thinking. In the past, from a sales funnel perspective, what you did is you put lots of stuff at the top and you hope that something actually came out at the bottom. Actually, what we need to do is that you can create yourselves and become in your particular area, and I'm going to talk about this, how you can become a micro-influencer and how you can be somebody that actually drives the discussion and driving the way that people are looking at a particular area. And I'm going to talk about how you can do this. What I have here is I'm going to talk to you about how you can use your LinkedIn profile and as a way of getting people to come to a conclusion. So, here I've got a whole number of endorsements where people tell you how great I am, because that's what I want you to think. And I've also written a whole load of articles, which is kind of why I'm standing here today. So what we need to do is we need to think about how we can actually grow our network and target people, how we can actually increase engagement and share good content and comment and write about things. Now, you need to come across, because we all say, you'll never, if I stood up and said, I'm the second best social selling person in the world, the first thing you'd say is, oh, Tim, so who's the first best? We didn't want to hire the second best one. We wanted to hire the first one. And everybody in this room, I'm sure you would say, feel that you're actually great at what you do. I might not feel that I'm at the pinnacle of my career, but I actually feel that I'm passionate about my job, and I feel that I do a good job. And that needs to come across. And we're going to talk about that. Now, doing your job isn't good enough anymore, because we're all good in this. We're all good at it. If there's one job going that we all want, and everybody in this room applies, who's going to get it? I don't know. But I'd want to be that little bit further ahead from everybody else, because I want to get the job. And so actually saying I'm good at my job kind of doesn't cut it. So One of the things that I talk to salespeople about is about social selling. Now, what social selling is a kind of a strange concept because it's not about selling on social. It's a really, I don't know, somebody came up with the name and we're still beating them with a stick to try and come up with something a bit better. Because we do that in sales, we don't, that's what our way we motivate people. So the first thing you do on social is don't sell. So one of the things I'm going to talk about now is about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your shop window to the world. It's used now by 500 million business people. If you are in business, you need to be on LinkedIn. I know from certain people may see LinkedIn as being a white male middle class social network, but from a social network perspective, it's used by business people. And my partner's 22-year-old came back from 3 months of travelling in South America and got a job in 2 weeks because he kept his LinkedIn profile up and running for the 3 months that he was in South America. It is a very good way, not necessarily to get your next job, maybe you do want to do that, but it's also a way that you need to come across to show that you're the person that's actually good at what you do. Think about the trends that are shaping your industry and think about how smart individuals will thrive in the future. So you might not necessarily need to think about your superpower as something that you do today, but it may be, okay, right, I'm going to be a superpower for artificial intelligence. I'm going to be, gamification, or whatever it is. It may be something in the future that you actually want to be famous for now, because if we go back to our 57%, there are people there searching on the internet, like we found out, looking for people with a particular skill, and they will find you if you do it right. And I'm going to tell you how to do it right. So here is a great example of, now this is a person that my business partner knows. He says he's the best person in the world. If you want to know about aviation and consulting around aviation, this is the person that you need to speak to, right? It's a bit boring, isn't it? That doesn't come across, does it? No? So, this is the second best person in the world to talk to about aviation. Now, I don't know about you, but I'll do that again. So I don't know about you, but I probably would go to the second best, but I wouldn't know that. I've jumped to the conclusion that that person there kind of looks a bit boring, whereas this person here kind of looks really interesting. And I probably can find something on here that I can actually talk to that person about. I had someone that came to me and said, Tim, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Okay, yeah. He said, do you remember the Silver Sword? I said, yeah, I did. I said, had many a good night in the Silver Sword. And he was also went to the same university that I went to. But what he did was that he used what was on my LinkedIn profile as a way of connecting with me, and we now have a friendship basically through that. In terms of you need to find good, and if you're going to start having conversations, one of the things that people look for is about having good content to share. Now, I always recommend that people use what I call the 4-1-1 rule, because we all need to have a rule and a methodology. So if you're going to share things on social media, you need to curate or find 4 articles around your particular superpower that you want to be famous for. You can then put in one of your own pieces, and then you need to put something out there that's human. So for example, before you all came in, I took a selfie of myself, which I know is a bit vain, but I took a selfie of myself, and that's actually gone to a WhatsApp group, and my social media manager is going to put that out over our business social media feed, because it's about making sure that there's a human element and we're having a conversation with people rather than just broadcasting. And there's loads of products that you can use to actually get or create content. I use Flipboard. There's a product called Feedly. You can get content from there's loads of content on LinkedIn, and there's also all kinds of stuff on Twitter that you can basically get hold of content. There's not a shortage of content. There's a fantastic photo of that bridge that goes over there, which is a great Instagram shot as well. In terms of how much time have I got left? Is it
5 minutes?
5 minutes. So when you're in a situation, you need to make sure that you're getting the people to actually jump to the conclusion that you want. So in terms of internal personal branding, and I'll just finish up on this. As I said earlier on, being good at your job isn't good enough anymore. And these are the things that, as I said, you need to do internally. Now, I've always found in life, working with people who are better than me is actually been a good thing, because I've actually learned from them. I actually never wanted to be the cleverest person in the room. I've always liked to sit there and find out that people are actually cleverer than me. There's a great saying about dig your well before you're thirsty. So I decided 3 years ago that I wanted to stand on stages and talk about social selling. And as I said, I actually changed the way things were to make sure that I actually got that in 3 years. That was part of my plan. You can't necessarily start now and then expect it all to happen. There's no silver bullet. Interesting one, be liked. I think it's actually great in the world for people actually to think that you're nice. I know sometimes it's all difficult sometimes to be nice, but I think one of the things that certainly one of the things that I would like at my funeral, I know that I've left a legacy because I've written a book, but it would not be nice if people actually stood up and said, and Tim was really nice as well. Your network is power. I know that there are people in here that may not think that a social network is important from a business perspective, but trust me, it's a way that you can use it, and you may not use it today, but you could be using it in the future. And finally, get a wingman. So I don't know if you've ever watched the Tom Cruise film, but I highly recommend that you get somebody and you actually buddy up with them and actually get them to tell people how nice you are. And they tell them, and you tell people how nice they are. Or you can actually work in a team to actually spread particular messages through the organisation. But you don't need to work in a silo, you can actually work as a team. And that's a great way of, as I say, of doing things from an internal perspective. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So 5 things to make an impact. Obviously the first one is to buy my book. After you've Googled yourself, go to Amazon, think about what you're going to be famous for, update your LinkedIn profile, start engaging on social networks, and also get a wingman. Thank you.